I think you don't need to have seen anything, any of the Alien movies to understand this one. It stands on its own, and it's very. I think this movie kind of embraces and takes on some of the most important and most kind of challenging topics and questions about life and where it started and who we are and what's after this life and I think that my character Elizabeth Shaw, she's kind of the heart in the movie and the one that convinced other people and talked other people into this, and so this is her dream, and then she realizes way too late that she was wrong. I loved working with him. Absolutely fantastic. He's and we had this almost like a silent communication. We didn't really talk that much. It's I think we connected somehow, and it felt like, I don't know. It really felt like we shared something, and we. From the first time I met him, he said to me, "I want to work with you, and you don't need to prove anything. I just want you to be you." And that's, to hear that from him was just quite unreal.
Well, he was someone that I've always wanted to work with, so it's a bit of a bucket list for me to have had this opportunity, and he didn't let me down in any way whatsoever. He's his love for wanting to make films is so sincere. He's got an energy about it that feels like a first-time director. He's incredibly smart. He's incredibly passionate, and he really loves actors. People who are expecting it to be something of Alien family will not be disappointed, and people who don't know anything about those films will not be disappointed. It's just a really solid film that asks really big questions and through great characters.
It's great. Hopefully the rain is just about holding off. It's kind of, there's some sort of, I don't know, anticipation in the atmosphere. It feels almost like there could be a thunderstorm, so that's good, I suppose, for the opening of a film. Not good for people standing outside. It's great to be in London. It's my hometown. Well, it's where I live now since moving from Ireland, so it's very special to be here to return to it because we did film it in Pinewood as well. He's Ridli Skot, so he's absolute master at so many things. And you have a crew of 300 people, and he's inspiring all of those people to go to work today and every day and do their job at peak performance, and that's a lot to achieve. And he's amazing.
It's quite a different world from the original Alien, and in it there's two central characters who have, whilst they're together, they have two separate fundamental beliefs about faith and about, I don't want this to sound like a religious movie, but actually there's three big questions in it. Where do we come from? Who made us? And if it was a God, if it wasn't God, who made him or them?
This is like crazy, this is a big extravaganza, but it still doesn't beat making it. How big this thing ever gets will never be as big as the creation of it, with the family that was formed and the cast and crew and Ridley being the paternal figure. You just can't beat it. Well, I think it's, simply original. It's a story that hasn't been told, and it's a purpose for exploration that hasn't been told. And while it's linked in many ways to the universe that he created 30 years ago, it's still an original film. Well, I hope they're gonna enjoy the grand gestures, meaning the questions that are asked, the shots that are made, of course the composition of 3D, juxtaposed with the intimate relations, the handheld cameras, and the minute attention to detail. I think it's an incredible dynamic in any movie. Yeah, it's a dream come true. I've been a fan of Ridley for a long time. Alien was one of the first R-rated movies I ever saw, and Blade Runner is one of my favorites. So, I thought it was going to be this big, intimidating thing, and it ended up being a very human experience with Ridley. He's just like a little prankster. He's a kid. He likes to play, and he plays with big toys and gathers incredible people to play with him.
It's a great honour, I have to say, and I'm like in it for a split second, so you know I feel a little embarrassed to be even sort of answering the question when you'll have Majkl Fasbender and Šarliz who really, and Numi of course, who carry the movie, you know. But look, you know, has become a friend, and I really respect him for the work that he's done and the creativity and the worlds that he kind of, you know, has allowed our audiences to sort of delve into. So it's an absolute honour, of course. Prometheus is a very different film to Alien. Prometheus has much grander, much bigger themes than Alien ever sort of delved into. And, you know, even though the two worlds connect, you know, the DNA is the same on some sort of level, you have to sort of realise that, you know, for Ridley, 30 years of thinking about this baby of his and perhaps the depths with which he could sort of indulge as far as exploring a story, you know, and coming to the point of Prometheus, you realise that it's a very different film to Alien, even though, as I say, they do connect. Everyone takes away something different personally for themselves. You know, they might ask the same sort of questions the film does, or it might answer some questions for them. So, you know, I just hope they are entertained by it ultimately.
It's 30 years before Alien, and I think that this movie didn't want to connect the dots to Alien. Something that's not really exciting about prequels is they end where the last one began, so you kind of know how everything's going to turn out. It was really important for Ridley to have this movie end in a way that if people liked it, the sequel to Prometheus would not be Alien. It would go off tangential. And it's about something different. That the original Alien was really just about surviving, getting attacked by this unstoppable killing machine with acid for blood. Prometheus is about something a little bit different, a little more weighty, so hopefully people will be interested in that.